There is a crisis in the real estate market as we speak. As we sit here in 2024, almost coming up to the election, wrapping up the third quarter to the fourth quarter, we have a ticking time bomb sitting in our hands. No, we're not talking about the 1 to 4 unit residential space. No, we're not talking about retail. We're not talking about commercial real estate as in multifamily. We are talking about the office commercial space. As we keep getting further and further away from lower rates, further and further away from the pandemic, we can see clearly now that the office market has not improved, that vacancies have not picked up. We can clearly define the definition from Class A buildings that are leasing and have all the amenities and stuff everyone wants to be there, and the Class C buildings and below are getting wiped out. They're not getting rented. Vacancies are super high. People built all these buildings in big urban cities. They're just not being filled. Some of the buildings, like areas like in certain parts of New York or certain parts of San Francisco and other parts, they have literally sold the building at more than 50, 60, 70% off market value of when the building was built. So there is tons of pain in that office space. We have loan maturities, rising delinquencies, distressed asset market prediction, and economic impact is saying it's just going to get worse and worse until it gets better. What do we need? We really need lower rates. We really need people to get back to the office. But honestly, at the end of the day, I don't think the get back to the office game is ever going to come back to the way it was. I think the pandemic has ultimately changed us as a society of how we look at life, how we experience things. It seems like people would rather go on a trip than buy a TV. It seems like people would rather work from home than drive into the office and waste all this time. And it seems that a lot of employers are okay with this. And with that being said, there's all this commercial space that's sitting around here that has debt on it, that's basically not being rented out, that's not being paid on. The banks don't want those properties. They're loan modding it. They're letting people skip payments. They're trying to work it out with them. They're maybe trying to come up with a different concept of maybe give them more money to construct it into a multifamily. There's just so many different obstacles going on that it's really becoming problematic. And the biggest fear now is that will this leak into other areas of the market? Will this affect other parts of commercial? Will this affect multifamily or, industrial or retail or, hotel? Will this affect 1 to 4 units? Will it affect lending? Is it going to hurt the economy? Will this ultimately cause pain to the economy? What we do know is a lot of these banks that are sitting on all these trillions of dollars of loans, it's sitting on their balance sheet. Will the Fed have to come in and bail them out? That is the $1 trillion question. Are we sitting on a ticking time bomb? What does the data tell us? How do we get out of this mess? Can we get out of this mess? Will low interest rates ultimately save us? Or really repositioning these properties, maybe knocking them down or having to do like a huge reset, boom, in the office space? Hey, what's up everybody? My name is Kenny Simpson. If we've never met before, I'm a mortgage broker by choice. I've been doing it 20 years, funded billions of dollars of loans, helped over 5,000 customers, and I shoot a lot of content video like the one you're watching right now. So thanks for watching, to educate you, to help you understand what's going on in the crazy market, to help you understand what's going on with interest rates, what's going on with housing, why is housing where it's at, whether it's inventory, whether it's rates, whether it's affordability. Are we having a housing crisis? All that fun stuff. I try to break down all the media, what's going to happen with the new election, just things like that. So I appreciate you watching. I would love to hear from you. Like, comment, share, subscribe to the channel. Also, send this to somebody else that might not want to hear it, but I appreciate you for stopping by, checking us out. Now back to the video. Are we sitting on a ticking time bomb? That is the $1 trillion question. So let's dive into the data and let's see, because remember, on this channel, if you watch me for the first time now, or you go back and watch my videos, you'll realize we look at data, we look at the numbers, we dive in, we see what's going on. We're more like ear to the ground. We don't just make hypothetical accusations or read from a teleprompter. We actually look and dive into the data and see what it's telling us. So in 2024, the year in right now, did you know that almost $1 trillion of loans is coming due? So that means that if it's not able to be refinanced, they have to foreclose on the property. That seller has to pay off the loan, pay down the loan, sell the property, or do a loan mod or a loan workout. And most of these lenders right now, banks, are doing the loan mod, the workout, extend the loan because they're trying to get through this tough time. They're trying to figure out with these owners that are not be able to make payments or sitting at a 50, 60% vacancy. What can we do? How to work it out. And so that number, $1 trillion, it equals to 20% of the entire basically loan portfolio of office space. So that means that's a huge number. So banks do not want this to crumble. And the craziest thing is in some markets, in some buildings, some values haven't crumbled or crashed that bad because a lot of banks are working it out with clients, with the buyers of these and the property owners. As you can see in this chart from 2023 to 2024 to 2025, all the way down, this is all the stuff in office that is maturing, and this has to get refinanced. Look, there's not only office, there's government debt, there's multifamily, there's all types of debt coming due. The only way to solve for a lot of it is going to get those rates down. Otherwise, we will have major problems. So they cannot keep holding this off forever. They're going to eventually have to make moves, do something. So the way to solve this, which everybody knows, is drop those rates, probably another 1-2% to really help out these properties, these owners, and these banks. All right, so let's take a look at the delinquency. And remember, without the delinquency, this report is probably skewed because there's a lot of banks that are probably not reporting delinquency. They're probably working them out. They probably extended the loan. They're probably accepting no payments. They might not be reporting correctly. But as you can see, according to this graph, rising delinquencies on commercial real estate loans have surged, with report delinquencies exceeded 90 days, rising from 1% in mid-22 to 3% in early 2024 for the largest banks. You know, you don't think about it, but like I said, I guarantee you that number's higher because they're in workout. And if you look at this chart here, you have multifamily, commercial real estate loans, occupied around residential properties. You can just see it here. This chart's very interesting, breaks down the data. But like I said, I do not think that we are getting the full accurate reporting because banks are working with them. So what about current distressed assets in the US? What does that number look like? And like I said, I don't even think these numbers are accurate. I think a lot of banks are not saying what's really on their balance sheet. I think they're saying they modded the loan or they worked it out or something like that's going on. But let's look what's actually reporting. So currently more than $94 billion in US commercial real estate is classified as distressed, with an additional $201 billion at risk. So that's almost $300 billion becoming distressed. That's a lot of money, folks. If you think about how much money it is that banks would have to give up or lose or fire sell properties, that is not a good number. So overall distressed property rates on this graph, as you can see here, multifamily, not doing too bad. Retail, not doing too bad. Self-storage had a little bump. Industrial had a little bump, but office, we can clearly see in this chart, clearly office is doing the worst out of all the categories. That's the highest delinquency rate. And so this is the most concerning. Some of those are up there too as well. Hotel, obviously, I think hotels coming off the pandemic, they've had much issues dealing with. Multifamily seems like a good spot. Retail, had its bump, has come back down. I think it's doing a little bit better. Industrial seems to be doing really well, the best sector. Self-storage, kind of a weird up and down. But as you can see, office is leading the pack. It's 10% plus delinquency. So that is a huge number. And it's not good because that's probably going to be growing, because remember, those numbers are probably not accurate. So with all this delinquency, all this office talk, let's see what some of the experts are saying in the industry to see maybe they have a solution how to get out of it, what they're seeing. What is this going to be, doom and gloom? Is this going to take down the rest of the market? Let's see what's going on.
Let's turn to real estate. The ETF ticker IYR, which tracks U.S. real estate, has not kept up with the broader market's gains so far this year. The sector facing headwinds like high borrowing costs and falling demand. San Francisco reaching its highest office vacancy ever in the second quarter. Joining us now, founder and executive chairman of Caruso, Rick Caruso, owns a mix of retail, residential, casino, and office properties like the Miramar Resort, the Grove, and Palisades Village. Rick, great to see you here.
Good being here. Thanks for having me.
So even though the broad real estate sector, publicly traded, hasn't quite kept up with the market, it's actually up a lot off the lows. I think as people have priced in lower yields, possibility of Fed rate cuts, maybe the worst, who knows, is over, or somebody's out there, about to take whatever losses sit on the books. I think people are trying to look on the bright side. Is that justified?
I think it's justified. I mean, you got to break it down into sector, right? So my universe is apartments, retail, hospitality, We're performing very well. Our NOI is going to be up double digit, about 13% this year, so we're having a really strong year. We're very happy about that. Attendance is great. Sales per square foot is great. If I was in the office sector, I'd be more concerned. Actually, I don't think we've seen the bottom yet. And in LA, I think we're up to about 30% vacancy in downtown LA, and that's a real problem.
So if we haven't seen the bottom, I mean, whether it's for vacancy rates or just values of properties, right? I mean, that's still working its way through. Leases are long. They take a long time to bleed off. Is there any sense that you think there's a constructive rethink of what downtowns ought to be, what we should do with these things? Or is it just a matter of we just have to, kind of let the losses wash over the system?
Well, listen, I mean, you've got a sale in downtown LA with one of the best A buildings that is selling for $147 a foot. It was valued at $600 million. It's selling for $200 million. So that's the kind of losses that are being hit. So you can make an argument that's an entry point to get in. But I don't think the bottom is hit because we still have rising crime. We have homeless problems, especially in downtown LA. And you really have to have aggressive leadership to go tackle this because it's not about going back to work. It's about where you want to go back to work. And downtown LA is not the choice where people want to come back to. But I think it can be turned around.
They could have elected you mayor, but they didn't. So what is the problem? Is it a political problem?
I think it's a political problem. I think it's a problem of the will, the desire, and frankly, the knowledge to go make some changes. They're not complicated changes. You've got to make the streets safe. You've got to clean up the streets. You've got to make it an environment where people want to go to work. I mean, this is just basic human nature that we all understand. And some cities are doing a very good job. But if you take a look at downtown LA that is declining, and you look 30 minutes away to Century City, best rates they've ever had in terms of rents, right? And the buildings are filled up because the area is clean and safe, and it works for workers to come in to go do their job.
What about, so you're heavy in retail. Are you seeing, the market's been concerned about a slowdown and a deterioration in the consumer and jobs. Are you seeing that impact the business?
We're not seeing a lot of it. We're seeing a little bit of it, but I'm not very concerned about it. What I'm more concerned about is you've got the consumer taking on more debt than ever. You have more pay later, right? We see those numbers. The consumer may end up slowing down a bit. I think it's going to be a little bit of turbulence, but not long term. And we're seeing a lot of growth. So, again, in my universe, we cannot meet the demand for retailers that want to be on our properties. We're running at 100% occupied. We're increasing our rents as they roll over 20%. So the right properties, the right locations, the demand is there and the sales are there.
One of the big arguments, of course, for the Fed getting aggressive in terms of bringing rates down is it does actually matter in real time to things like credit card rates.
Of course it does.
And obviously anything, real estate loans linked to prime rate.
I'm excited about that.
So is that going to change the equation for you?
It's going to make it better.
Yeah.
And I'm bullish on the future, right? You've got real growth in this country that's probably going to be around 2.5%. You've got an environment where rates are going to go down, which is great for everybody. You've got great leadership and innovation in the United States. If you ask me, are you bullish on the economy? Are you bullish on U.S. companies? Absolutely. We've got some of the smartest and brightest people running some of the most important companies in the world. So, listen, I think it's like anything. We want to build our properties like a plane to go through turbulence, not just calm weather. And I think we're going to have a little bit of turbulence, but I think we're going to have a great future.
So where are you expanding? What kind of categories or geography?
Resort. We want to build more resorts. Great success we've had up at the Rosewood Miramar. We're doing more retail, and we're adding residential to our existing retail centers to convert them into mixed use, which from a modeling standpoint, financial model standpoint, is fantastic.
What about, I also wanted to ask you about the national election. You're a Democrat, right?
Yep.
You're a Democrat donor.
Yes, I am.
But I think of you as more to the center.
I am.
Right?
Yep.
Especially on very pro-business, obviously. So what are you thinking as far as the economic policies that we have seen laid out so far from the two candidates, and who might be better?
We've got two different paths. I think Peggy Noonan in the Wall Street Journal the other day had a great article talking about voters will probably not pick a person, they're going to pick a path. And so you have two very, very different approaches here. Now, I like what Kamala is saying about housing. Housing is critically important, and I like the use of tax credits. When I was a young lawyer, tax credits were one of the best incentives that they gave people to build things that were important to the economy. So bringing that kind of thinking back, I think, is a great idea. So we'll see. You know, the debate's going to show us a lot, and I think everybody should tune in, and it'd be fun. I used to love the debates when I was campaigning, and so I hope they have fun and we learn a lot about their policies.
But you're not ready to get behind it yet, it sounds like.
Well, what I am ready to get behind is doing more of housing, getting our streets cleaned up, getting our streets safer, and shutting down some of the problems that we have right now in our cities.
Analysts predict the commercial real estate market could face significant crisis with expectations of further declines in market values and increased difficulty in refinancing loans. 100% agree. If you take a look at this chart, figure 3A, more respondents expect fundamentals to worsen than in all prior real estate outlook surveys. Wow. Okay. So worsen. This is in the next 12 to 18 months. It's saying the cost of capital is supposed to get worse. Capital availability is supposed to get worse. Property prices worse. Vacancy levels worse. Leasing activity worse. Transactional activity worse. And rental rates worse. It's beating. So nothing is saying it's going to get any better than it is now in the 12 to 24 months because, like I said, it's very hard with people working from home. It's very hard with businesses downgrading and getting rid of leases and realizing after the pandemic, we can shed cost, we can shed overhead, people can work out of their house, or we just don't even need all this space. Now's the time to get out. I think you're going to see a ton of non-renewals over the next 2-3 years as well. So huge thing. And back in 2022, if you guys recall, when we were in the pandemic, that was kind of coming out of it, there was bold predictions in the year 2022. And let me read a quote. The fears became prominent through economic analysis from New York, Apraghat Gupta and Columbia University's Singh Van Nuremberg. Sorry, I probably destroyed that name. Their 2022 research predicted a $664 billion value destruction in the U.S. office real estate. Economists and market analysis have since forecasted significant declines in office properties, and with media reports using phrases like a flood of debt, dramatic downturn, and 1.5 trillion crisis, among other alarming predictions. Huge crash. So what would be the implications for home buyers, realtors, brokers, people? Like, could this affect any other market? Was this going to leak into the economy, leak into housing, leak into, the rest? Like, look, if one sector is dying and the banks are getting hit, and then if a new president comes in, whoever it is, and there's a recession or they overregulate things like that, you're just going to take that financial strain on the banks and make it harder. So we have to think about that if there's more regulation and things like that coming down the pipeline. Let's look at some of the stuff here, how to deal with this office crisis, what to do, good or bad. Let's dive into what some of what we're reading, and we've got some feedback from just reading articles and things like that out there, what the consensus is of what can be done to help out. Increase home supplies, so the push to convert office buildings into condos, apartments, some type of housing that could provide more units in rental, more units for sale. Obviously that could help affordability, but as you probably have read or heard, it's not easy to convert these buildings. It's super costly, and a lot of times it doesn't make sense. So I think some of it works, but some of it's not. So is that really going to make sense? I'm not sure. Market volatility, obviously, as you guys know, as we enter a recession and things, we do enter a recession or the economy gets slower and things get worse, this could only put more pressure on market volatility in the office space and the commercial and any space. So, having $1 trillion debt lingering over here with values tanking, it's not good for the overall economy. Just as the housing market brought us into recession last cycle, the debt market, you never know what could happen this time too. So we have to watch this stuff closely. Financial challenges. So when an office sector is getting crushed and crushing the bank's balance sheets, that means what they have on their balance sheets, they're holding the loans. They know the values are down. They're not performing. People aren't paying. They're going to be less reluctant to lend on whether it's homes, auto, commercial, credit card, business, multifamily properties, because they've got this lingering issue over here. They have to keep more liquidity. They got to make sure they have their reserves for it. They got to make sure they look good. So they're going to be cherry picking deals. They're going to be, less capital, but sometimes they will pick a certain area and go, we love this area, or we love, industrial, we love data centers or something, and put more capital in that and just to restrict a lot of other areas. So banks are pulling that back. CEOs of banks chief credit officers are definitely more reluctant, and they're definitely gun shy at lending these days for sure. My wife's in commercial real estate. We see it and hear it every day. So where are the opportunities, the investment opportunities? Obviously, for Wall Street firms that have big money, they're taking down big office buildings, they're buying stuff. So if people have capital, they've got the balls, they got the wherewithal, they got the knowledge, they could be out there making moves now. They might have to sit through many, many, many years of a building that wouldn't work. So you're going to see some big players come in, scoop up some properties. And I'm sure down the road in 3, 5, 6, 7, 10 years, you'll see some of these properties turn around for an amazing property or turn it into multifamily or housing. So I'm sure these very smart, big real estate investors, creative people will figure out some solutions for a lot of these projects. And last but not least, like I mentioned, economic ripple. Look, a real estate could bring us in a recession. The stock market could bring us in a recession. Consumers not spending could bring us in a recession. You could have a job loss recession. There's many, many factors or ways how a recession could start, could happen. Like I said, not lending would kill us. We're an economy where we need to consume. So 70% of our economy is consuming. And out of every purchase that's done, 80% of those purchases are used by a card, credit card, something like that. It's finance. So if you can't finance and things aren't lendability, people aren't feeling good and the value's down in, their house or their 401k and stuff like that, and they're losing jobs, that could bring down. So anything added on to that to make it worse, like office doing terrible or any other commercial real estate or banks struggling, it's tough on lending, it's tough on the overall economy, and that could push us into some type of recession or make a recession much worse. In conclusion, about the real estate crisis, the looming office crisis, which it is, the government stepping in, they are giving maybe government or local, they're giving, tax incentives. They're probably, maybe they're going to offer, even local places might offer money to have developers come in, reposition offices, things like that. Maybe malls, you're hearing that they're repositioning malls, turning them to different things. So you're going to start seeing more of that. You're going to see the government help fund the projects and start making turnaround. Nobody wants a bunch of buildings in their downtown or urban areas or wherever, office buildings, vacant, sitting there, withering away. Banks don't want it. The local government doesn't want it. The federal government doesn't want it. Real estate investors don't want it. And me and you as people, we definitely don't want that for our neighborhoods. We want our neighborhoods thriving and going and people spending money and jobs and things looking good, right? We don't want to see things sitting there vacant and aging. That's not a good thing. Long-term planning, obviously, is they're going to have to find solutions. That's what they're doing. So you'll see some people go through the office conversions. Maybe there's a new way. They might think they just have to knock down buildings, scrape them. So they'd be getting these buildings at a super massive discount. So if a bank has to buy it back, maybe they're just going to eat a bunch of debt, or they'll work it out with the new buyer, let them knock it down, give them a construction loan, try to be a partner with them in that deal. So I think you're going to see banks being partners with these real estate developers or these real estate investors and trying to make this work instead of just taking it back, fire selling it. They don't want to do that. So they're going to continue. The long-term goal is to work with the owner or developers and figure out a plan for these buildings. And last but not least, with the closing of Silicon Valley Bank or First Republic Bank, we don't want any more of that. So we really need to make sure that the banks are smart and make moves, because these regional small banks that support small businesses, small commercial loans, especially at a local level, we deal with them here in like San Diego or California. They're huge to the economy. They're huge to businesses. We need them. We don't need just a bunch of big banks. Those are the ones who have the biggest hit, the biggest impact, because they have the smallest balance sheet, maybe the less liquidity. Maybe they're more risky on some loans in a certain area, or have too many loans on their balance sheet, in a local area. And those are not doing so well. So we need those regional banks. So we just need to make sure that things like that don't fail. And the federal government does pay attention to this. Not all these big banks, Chase, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, et cetera, are buying up all these small banks, because they do not lend. They're not the same way as these small regional banks. Look, if you're a homeowner, how do you react to this? What do you think about it? You need to stay informed. Watch people like me that break down this housing, pay attention to it, the data, the numbers, and just keep watching. But obviously, there's always opportunities. So maybe you're a homeowner, maybe you're looking to get into commercial space, and maybe there's an opportunity for you to buy, and maybe you have a business and you want to buy an office building. You're like, great, I can buy one at a discount or something like that. So there's always going to be opportunities there. For realtors and brokers, obviously in the 1 to 4 space, hopefully this wouldn't affect you. But in the commercial space, if you're in an office, obviously you're trying to educate your clients. You're trying to figure out a solution to how to turn these buildings around, rent them out. Your job is very, very tough right now. I hope it gets easier. Being educated and educating your people out there on what they can do is the only way you're probably going to survive in this industry. Lawmakers in this thing, they really need to think about this, because we do not want commercial real estate, especially office, to put us into a recession or some type of big recession and take down banks and kill all these regional banks. So they're going to have to pay attention to see what happens. There might be certain market urban places around the country that are worse than others. So yeah, they might have to come in and bail out or work with or become partners in banks and help them out, or partners with real estate investors. Like I said, is the federal government, the banks, they're not into owning real estate. They're not real estate investors, even though they do. Banks own real estate, government owns real estate, but they want the people that have bought these to operate them. They want to be partners with them. They want them to work it out. So this is just a major reset in the office. They're going to have to figure it out and keep that long-term mentality. And obviously for the community, if you're in a community where a lot of this is going on, you're seeing a lot of vacancy and stuff like that, especially like a downtown San Francisco. The only thing you can do is hope and pray that investors come in and buy it. Your local government has learned lessons of maybe over-regulating or getting people out. So hopefully changes will come, but some of these places are just going to take longer to recover. And that's going to be more of an issue with values and stuff like that. So at the end of the day, keep watching, keep following me for more news and articles like this. I appreciate you guys watching. Share this video with somebody, like, comment below, subscribe so you get new videos that they get released. Again, thank you for watching. If I can help you out, please connect with me, reach out to me. My information is below. Talk soon.